The huge meeting room of the Galactic Council was noisy with sounds from 100 different alien races. Crystal creatures from faraway planets made musical sounds while lizard-like beings clicked their tongues to show if they agreed or not. In the middle of this space meeting, Captain Jake Morrison stood by himself. His simple blue uniform looked very plain next to the fancy clothes and metal body parts of the alien leaders around him. Earth wants to join the Galactic Defense Alliance, Jake said clearly so everyone could hear him through their translation machines. We want to offer our space fleet to help protect everyone. A wave of what sounded like laughter went through the room. Counselor Thex, who looked like a giant bug with 4 arms, raised one arm and made a face that looked like he was making fun of someone. Your fleet, Captain Morrison, Thex said in a mean voice, has only 47 ships. My people alone have more than 3,000 warships. The room filled with clicking sounds, humming, and robot-like laughter. Admiral Korth, a huge water creature who lived in a tank full of liquid, moved closer to the front of his tank. 47 ships, Korth said, his voice making bubble sounds through his translator. We have bigger fleets just to protect our mining operations. What can such a tiny group of ships do to help protect the galaxy? Jake stayed very still and kept his face calm. With respect, Counselor, being big does not always mean being strong. Maybe not, said Counselor Vex, who looked like a cat person, and seemed amused. But when the Zephyrian Empire has armies of 10,000 ships, your 47 ships seem very cute. The laughter got louder. Even the robot minds from the planet Kepler seemed to flash their lights in a way that meant they thought it was funny. Jake had expected this reaction, but it still hurt his feelings. Humans had worked for many years to build their small but good fleet, and seeing it laughed at like this made him angry. Earth has studied space fighting for a long time, Jake continued. Our way of fighting might be different from what you normally do, but we think being good at fighting matters more than having lots of ships. Being good at fighting, Admiral Korth laughed. Young races always think they can change how wars are fought. We have been fighting in space for thousands of years while your people were still learning to make fire. Counselor Prime Zen, the very old leader of the council, raised a crystal arm to make everyone quiet. His people, called the Eternal Ones, had watched many civilizations grow and die. Captain Morrison, Zen said in a voice that sounded very old and wise, we like that humans want to help, but space war is very dangerous. The Zephyrian Empire alone has more firepower than most star systems put together. Your fleet, while good for a young race, would be destroyed in minutes if they fought the enemy. That might be true, Counselor Prime, Jake answered, but we are offering what we have to help bring peace. Peace, Admiral Korth laughed, the sound weird because of his water environment. Peace comes from being strong, human, and being strong comes from having many ships. Your tiny fleet is a nice try, but not really helpful for serious fighting. The meeting went on for hours. Different alien races talked about how many ships they had. The crystal people from Altair talked about their crystal ships that could control star energy. The lizard people bragged about their living ships that could heal themselves and make baby ships during battle. Each time someone talked, it made Earth's offer seem smaller and less important. Captain Jake Morrison listened as each alien leader described their massive fleets. The bug people had ships that could eat metal and grow bigger. The water people had ships that could swim through space like fish. The robot people had ships that could think and fight by themselves. Every race seemed to have thousands and thousands of warships. Earth humans, laughed one alien who looked like a walking tree. Your ships are so few. We use more ships just to carry our garbage. Another alien that looked like a floating jellyfish added, our children play with toy fleets, bigger than your real fleet. Jake felt his face get red with embarrassment, but he did not let his anger show. He had been trained to stay calm even when people were being mean to him. Numbers are not everything, Jake said quietly. Sometimes the smallest key can open the biggest door. Pretty words, said Counselor Thex, waving his forearms, but pretty words do not stop enemy laser beams. As the council meeting was ending, Counselor Prime Zen spoke to Jake one last time. The Galactic Council likes that Earth wants to join our group, but to be a military member, you need to bring something that really helps defend everyone. We think Earth should work on building its fleet for maybe 100 or 200 more years before asking again. Jake nodded politely. We understand, Counselor Prime, but our offer is still good. If the Council ever needs the Earth fleet, we are ready to help. Many of the aliens started laughing again as Jake walked toward the door. Some made jokes about Earth's baby fleet and toy ships. Others wondered out loud if humans even knew which end of a laser gun to point at the enemy. Maybe they can be our messengers, one alien joked. Their ships are so small and weak the enemy might not even notice them. Or target practice, another alien added, making the whole room laugh louder. Jake stopped at the door and turned back to face the room full of aliens who were still laughing at him. Counselor Prime, he said in a loud, clear voice that made everyone stop laughing. I want to say one more thing. The room became quiet. Even though they thought humans were weak, they still had manners and would listen. Earth has been fighting wars for thousands of years, Jake said. We have learned that the side with the most soldiers does not always win. Sometimes the side that thinks differently wins. What do you mean? Asked Counselor Prime Zen. We learn to win when we should lose, Jake said simply. That is what makes humans dangerous. The room was silent for a moment. Then the laughter started again, louder than before. Dangerous! Admiral Korth laughed so hard his tank shook. 47 ships against the galaxy. Very dangerous indeed. Jake Morrison smiled a small, cold smile. Yes, Counselor, we are. As he walked out of the chamber, Jake could still hear the aliens laughing behind him. They thought Earth was weak and funny. They thought human ships were too small to matter. They thought wrong. The laughter that followed Jake as he left the room would be remembered in space history books, but none of the aliens laughing could have guessed why. They had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had underestimated humanity, and soon, very soon, they would learn what that mistake would cost them. 3 months had passed since the aliens laughed at Earth's small fleet. Now the galaxy was in deep trouble. The Zephyrian Empire, a very dangerous group that had been kept away from the main part of the galaxy, had broken through all the defenses. Their huge army of spaceships, led by a warrior called War Prime Scareth, was destroying star system after star system like a deadly disease spreading through space. The Galactic Council now met every single day because of the emergency. The big meeting room that used to be full of aliens bragging about how strong they were was now full of scared voices and desperate planning. My third fleet has been completely wiped out at Kepler 7, Admiral Korth reported. His voice was shaking, with fear instead of his usual proud attitude. We lost 800 ships in less than 4 hours. Counselor Thex, the bug-like alien, clicked his mouth parts very fast. This meant he was extremely worried. My people's forces got beaten just as badly at Rigel Station. The Zephyrians have new weapons that are better than anything we can defend against. More bad news kept coming in, and each report was worse than the last. The Crystal people from Altair, whose ships were supposed to be impossible to destroy, had been smashed to pieces by Zephyrian spacebreaker weapons. The Lizard people's living ships, which could heal themselves and even make baby ships during battle, had been killed by some kind of artificial plague that the enemy had used against them. Counselor Prime Zen, the very old crystal being, flickered, with patterns of light that showed he was more stressed than anyone had ever seen him. The Zephyrian army is getting close to our most important worlds. If they keep moving this fast, they will reach our main capital planet in just 2 months. How many ships do we still have? Admiral Korth asked. His desperation made his voice sound almost human through the translator. Our combined fleets still have about 15,000 ships, Counselor Vex reported. The cat-like alien looked very tired. But our spies tell us the Zephyrians have more than 40,000 ships, and each one has weapons and technology we do not understand. The room became very quiet. Everyone could do the math, and it was scary. Even if every Alliance ship fought perfectly together, they would still be outnumbered almost 3-to-1 by an enemy that had already proven they were better fighters. Maybe, said one of the robot minds, its mechanical voice cutting through the sad mood, we should think about getting help from someone unexpected. What do you mean? Asked Counselor Prime Zen. The human fleet, Counselor Prime. Captain Morrison said his offer was still good, right? Many aliens immediately started arguing against this idea. Admiral Korth's water tank bubbled angrily as he spoke. 47 ships against the Zephyrian army? You might as well tell us to throw rocks at them. Actually, came a familiar voice from the door, we like to use more advanced projectiles than rocks. Captain Jake Morrison walked into the chamber, but this time he was not alone. Behind him came Admiral Lisa Carter, a woman who was famous among human military people, though the aliens had never heard of her. Even though the aliens had dismissed humans before, something about her made them pay attention. Captain Morrison, Counselor Prime Zen said, "We did not call for Earth to come here." "No, you did not," Jake answered. "But we have been watching what is happening. Earth officially offers our fleet to help defend the Alliance worlds." The room exploded with sounds of disbelief and desperate hope. Counselor Thex was the first to say what many were thinking. "Captain, we are grateful for the offer, but 47 ships cannot possibly help against such impossible odds." Admiral Carter stepped forward. She looked calm but determined. "Counselor, with respect, you are thinking about this wrong. This is not about having the same number of ships. This is about winning." "Explain," Admiral Korth demanded. His desperation was stronger than his previous hatred for humans. "The Zephyrian way of fighting depends on using massive force in direct attacks," Carter continued. "They have conquered every system by simply having more guns and more ships than their enemies. But there are other ways to fight a war." "Other ways," Counselor Vex laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. "You mean tactics? We have used every fighting formation known to galactic warfare." Lisa Carter smiled, and there was something in that smile that made even the ancient Counselor Prime Zen listen carefully. "Respectfully, Counselor, you have used every tactic known to galactic warfare, but you have not used human tactics." The room became silent as everyone thought about what her words meant. These aliens had been fighting wars in space for thousands of years. They had developed strategies and technologies that humans could not even imagine. The idea that a species that had barely left their home planet could offer new ways of fighting seemed crazy, but their current ways of fighting had failed completely against the Zephyrian threat. "What are you suggesting?" asked Counselor Prime Zen. "Give us command of the defense," Carter said. "Let humanity coordinate how the Alliance fleet fights back." The silence that followed was so complete it was scary. Admiral Korth was the first to speak. "You want us to put 15,000 ships under the command of a species that only has 47 ships?" "Yes," Carter said simply. "This is crazy," Counselor Thex clicked rapidly. "No offense, Admiral Carter, but human military experience is only from fighting in your own solar system." "True," Jake said, "but human military thinking was developed under very specific problems. We could not build huge fleets, so we had to think differently about warfare." "Differently how?" "Counselor," Vex demanded. Admiral Carter's smile got bigger. "Counselor, has any species in this alliance ever fought a war where they were completely outnumbered and outgunned?" The question hung in the air like a heavy weight. The truth was obvious to everyone there. Every species in the alliance had become galactic powers through military or technological superiority. They had always been the stronger force, the more advanced civilization, the ones with more power. Humanity was the first species to join the galactic community from a position of complete military weakness. "We have been preparing for this exact situation our entire space-traveling existence," Carter continued. "Fighting against impossible odds is not just theory for us. It is the foundation of our entire military philosophy." Counselor Prime Zen's ancient form pulsed with consideration. The Eternal Ones had watched countless species rise and fall, and he recognized something in the humans that others missed. It was not arrogance or desperation. It was confidence that came from necessity. "What promise can you give us that your tactics will work where ours have failed?" Zen asked. "None," Carter replied honestly, "but I can promise that continuing with current strategies will result in total defeat. The Zephyrians have studied galactic warfare. They know how every species fights, because you have all been fighting the same way for thousands of years." "And they have not studied human warfare?" asked Admiral Korth. Jake Morrison laughed. The sound strange in the formal chamber. "Admiral, until 3 months ago, Everyone in this room thought human warfare was a joke. The Zephyrians probably do not even know we exist. The brutal honesty of what he said hit everyone hard. In their pride, the galactic community had completely dismissed humanity's military potential. If they had made that mistake, the Zephyrians probably had too. Time is running out, warned Counselor Prime Zen. The Zephyrian advance continues while we talk. Then let us stop talking, Carter said. Give us command, and we will show you how humans fight a war they cannot win. The vote was much closer than anyone expected. Fear and desperation made many support the human proposal, while pride and logic said it was suicide. In the end, it was Counselor Prime Zen's ancient wisdom that made the difference. The Eternal Ones have seen many impossible things become possible, he said. We vote to accept human command. As the decision was made official, Admiral Carter turned to Jake Morrison. Signal the fleet, Captain. It is time to show them what 47 ships can really do. The aliens who had laughed at humanity's tiny fleet 3 months ago were about to learn their first lesson about humans. When humans say they can do something impossible, it is wise to listen. The Nexus system had been chosen as the place where humanity would make their stand against the Zephyrian army. It was a very important location because it was the only way to reach the Alliance's most important worlds. Here, among floating rocks, and the strange gravity effects of a dead star system, 15,000 Alliance ships waited under human command. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's main ship. Around her, officers from many different alien species worked at control stations that had been changed to work for humans. Their various ways of talking were all translated into battle information that humans could understand. Zephyrian fleet, spotted at the edge of the system, reported Lieutenant Commander Ryan Brooks. His voice was steady even though what they faced was huge. 43,700 ships confirmed. War Prime Scareth is commanding from the giant ship called Eternal Conquest. Through the battle display screen, everyone could see just how big the enemy force really was. The Zephyrian army stretched across space like a metal cloud. Their ships went from destroyers that were 1 kilometer long to massive command ships that were 10 kilometers long and worked like moving battle stations. Alliance fleet is in position, reported Commander Amy Foster from the communication station. All ships are where they should be, and waiting for orders. Carter studied the battle display with an intensity that made her human crew nervous and confused the aliens watching her. The way the Alliance fleet was positioned seemed random, even messy, compared to normal galactic fighting formations. The Alliance ships were scattered all through the asteroid field, hiding behind huge rocks or in the gravity shadows of dead planets. There were no battle lines, no formation order, no clear coordination between groups. To aliens who had been trained in galactic military tactics, it looked like command had completely broken down. Admiral, came a message from Admiral Korth, his worry clear even through translation. My ships are reporting they cannot form proper battle lines. We are scattered across the entire system. That is correct, Admiral, Carter replied calmly. Stay in your assigned positions. But normal galactic fighting requires bringing forces together, protested Counselor Thex from his command ship. We are making ourselves isolated targets for the enemy to defeat one by one. Trust the plan, Counselor, Carter said. Captain Morrison, what is the status on the special packages? From his position on the UES Vengeance, Jake Morrison's voice came through clearly. All packages are in place and armed, Admiral. The Zephyrians will not see them coming. The Zephyrian army moved into the system with the confidence of a force that had never lost a battle. War Prime Scareth's way of fighting was simple and worked well. Overwhelm enemy positions with superior firepower while using more ships to attack from the sides and destroy fleeing vessels. Pathetic, Scareth transmitted, on open channels so everyone could hear, his translated voice full of hate. The Alliance sends their ships to hide among rocks like scared insects. We will crush them as we have crushed all who oppose the Zephyrian Empire. The first Zephyrian attack wave had 5,000 ships, a force bigger than most galactic fleets. They moved in perfect formation toward the largest group of Alliance vessels, planning to break the defense in one decisive attack. They flew directly into the trap. Now, Carter ordered quietly. Throughout the asteroid field, rocks that looked harmless suddenly exploded with nuclear fire. The special packages Captain Morrison had mentioned were revealed to be fusion bombs, disguised and placed throughout the system over the past several days. Hundreds of Zephyrian ships disappeared in balls of nuclear fire as the hidden weapons activated all at the same time. But that was only the beginning. Ghost Squadron, you are clear for attack run, Carter commanded. From positions hidden deep within the asteroid field, 47 human ships appeared. But something was wrong with the enemy sensors. The Zephyrian detection systems, set up for standard galactic technology, only showed 12 human vessels on their screens. The UES Phantom Wing looked like a standard human destroyer, barely 300 meters long. But as it got closer to the confused Zephyrian formation, its true nature became clear. The ship's hull flickered and split apart, showing that it was actually 5 ships flying in perfect formation. Their hulls were covered with special camouflage that made them look like a single vessel. Every human ship used similar tricks. Stealth technology, developed because humanity needed to hide from superior forces, made the small fleet nearly invisible. Electronic warfare systems, improved through years of thinking about how weak forces could fight strong ones, turned the Zephyrians' own sensors against them. Impossible, War Prime Scarath growled as his tactical display showed conflicting information. Our sensors show 12 ships, but we are taking fire from over 200 positions. The human attack was unlike anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. Instead of meeting force with force, the human ships used hit-and-run tactics. They appeared from nowhere to strike at weak targets before disappearing back into the asteroid field. Captain Jake Morrison's voice cut through the tactical chatter as his ship, the UES Retribution, destroyed a Zephyrian heavy cruiser with a single precise strike. Target their command and control centers, Morrison ordered his squadron. Cut their communication links and let confusion do the rest. The Zephyrian formation, designed for overwhelming frontal assault, began to break apart as commanders lost contact with their subordinates. Ships fired on their own allies, mistaking them for the ghostly human vessels that seemed to appear and disappear at will. Alliance Fleet, execute Phoenix Protocol, Carter commanded. Throughout the system, the scattered Alliance ships revealed the true purpose of their positioning. They were not hiding randomly among the asteroids. They were positioned to create overlapping fields of fire that would activate only when the enemy was fully committed to the attack. Thousands of Alliance vessels opened fire at the same time, their weapons set to human-provided targeting information. The effect was devastating. Zephyrian ships found themselves caught in crossfires from directions they had not even considered. Their formations collapsed under the precise coordination of the Alliance response. "This is impossible," War Prime Scarath roared, his command ship shaking under sustained fire from multiple directions. No force this small should be able to coordinate such a complex attack. But Admiral Carter was not finished. The human fleet had shown only a small part of their capabilities. "Initiate Cascade Protocol," she ordered. Hidden throughout the Zephyrian formation were devices so small they had been dismissed as space junk. These were humanity's newest innovation. Smart minds that could analyze enemy shield frequencies and weapons patterns, then send that information to Alliance ships. Suddenly, every Alliance weapon knew exactly how to break through Zephyrian defenses. Shields that had been impossible for galactic weapons to penetrate collapsed under precisely calibrated attacks. The technological advantage the Zephyrians had held over other species disappeared in minutes. "Retreat," Scarath ordered, his voice no longer confident. "All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance." But retreat was exactly what Admiral Carter had been waiting for. "All units execute Hammer Protocol," she commanded. The true horror of human tactical thinking was revealed in that moment. Every move the Zephyrians had made, every decision they had taken, had been anticipated and prepared for. The retreat routes they chose led them directly into secondary minefields. The rally points they selected were already targeted by Alliance artillery. The 47 ships of the human fleet had controlled the movements of 43,000 enemy vessels, like a conductor directing a symphony of destruction. Counselor, Prime Zen to Admiral Carter, came a transmission filled with awe. How did you know they would respond exactly as they did? Because, Counselor, Carter replied as another wave of Zephyrian ships fell to coordinated alliance fire. We have been studying galactic warfare for decades. We know how you think, how you fight, and how you react to threats. The Zephyrians learned from the same traditions you did. The battle continued for 18 more hours, but the outcome was never in doubt after that first devastating exchange. The Zephyrian army, designed to overwhelm through superior numbers and firepower, found itself systematically destroyed by an enemy that refused to fight according to established rules. When War Prime Scareth's command ship finally exploded under concentrated fire from the entire Alliance fleet, the remaining Zephyrian forces surrendered rather than face complete destruction. Of the 43,000 ships that had entered the Nexus system, fewer than 8,000 remained functional. The Alliance had lost only 400 vessels, most of those due to tactical errors in the early phases of the battle. Admiral Carter, came a transmission from Counselor Prime Zen. The Galactic Council requests your immediate presence. We have much to discuss. The aliens who had laughed at humanity's tiny fleet now understood the truth. Size did not matter when you knew how to use what you had. The great meeting room of the Galactic Council had completely changed. Where once dismissive laughter had filled the air, now respectful silence ruled. The assembled delegates, representing civilizations that had controlled the galaxy for thousands of years, watched as Admiral Lisa Carter and Captain Jake Morrison entered with an honor guard made up of officers from every Alliance species. Counselor Prime Zen's ancient crystal form pulsed with patterns of deep respect. Emotions his species rarely showed toward younger civilizations. Admiral Carter, Captain Morrison, Zen began, his voice carrying the weight of formal ceremony. The Galactic Council meets in emergency session to address the victory at Nexus and what it means for Alliance membership. Admiral Korth, his previous arrogance completely gone, leaned forward in his water-filled chamber. Admiral Carter, on behalf of my people, I must offer formal apology for our earlier dismissal of human military capabilities. Your tactics saved not just Alliance ships, but our entire civilization. Similar statements came from around the chamber. The bug people, the crystal minds from Altair, the robot consciousness, every species that had mocked humanity's tiny fleet now offered formal recognition of their mistake. The question before this council, continued Counselor Prime Zen, is no longer whether humanity deserves membership in the Galactic Defense Alliance. After Nexus, that question has been definitively answered. The question now is what role humanity will play in galactic security going forward. Admiral Carter stepped forward, her expression thoughtful. Counselor Prime, Earth's position has not changed. We offer our fleet in service to collective security, nothing more. But Admiral, said Counselor Vex, her cat-like features serious, after Nexus it is clear that human military thinking represents a fundamental advancement in galactic warfare. Surely Earth recognizes what this development means. Captain Morrison spoke for the first time since entering the chamber. Counselor Vex, what we showed at Nexus was not some revolutionary new approach to warfare. It was simply what happens when a species develops military thinking from a position of weakness rather than strength. Explain, requested Counselor Vex, his mouth parts clicking with curiosity rather than dismissal. Every species in this alliance achieved galactic status through military or technological superiority, Morrison continued. Your ways of fighting were developed by the stronger force, designed to use advantages you already had. Human fighting methods were developed by the weaker force, designed to defeat opponents with every conceivable advantage. Admiral Carter nodded. The Zephyrians studied galactic warfare and found ways to exceed your capabilities within the same framework. But they never considered that someone might approach warfare from a completely different philosophical foundation. And what foundation is that? Asked Admiral Korth. The assumption that we are going to lose, Carter replied simply. The chamber fell silent as everyone thought about what her statement meant. These beings had spent thousands of years as the dominant powers in the galaxy. The concept of preparing for defeat was completely foreign to their military thinking. You prepare for defeat? asked Counselor Prime Zen. We prepare for victory despite inevitable defeat, Morrison clarified. Every human military doctrine assumes we will be outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting against superior technology. Our strategies are designed to achieve victory under those conditions. But surely, protested Counselor Vex, with your proven capabilities, humanity could build fleets to match any galactic power? Admiral Carter smiled, the expression carrying a mix of pride and sadness. Counselor, humanity could build a fleet of 10,000 ships within 10 years. Our industrial capacity and technological base make that entirely possible. Then why maintain such a small fleet, demanded Admiral Korth. Because the moment we start building for numerical superiority, we start thinking like you do, Carter explained. We lose the tactical flexibility that comes from assuming we are the underdog. Our 47 ships are not a limitation, they are a strategic choice. Counselor Prime Zen's form pulsed with understanding. The ancient being had witnessed the rise and fall of countless military powers, and he recognized the wisdom in humanity's approach. You intentionally maintain the mindset of the weaker force, Zen observed. Exactly, Morrison agreed. Earth's military doctrine is based on a simple principle. If we can win while outnumbered 47 to 43,000, we can win against any odds. Which brings us to the matter at hand, interrupted Counselor Thex. The Galactic Defense Alliance formally requests that humanity assume command of all Alliance military operations. The proposal hit the chamber like a physical blow. Even Admiral Carter seemed surprised by the scope of what was being offered. Counselor, that is a tremendous responsibility, Carter said carefully. The Alliance fleet represents the military power of dozens of species. Admiral, Counselor Prime Zen replied. After Nexus, every species in this alliance recognizes that human military leadership offers the best chance of survival in a hostile galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was not the only threat we face. There are other empires beyond the Rim, added Admiral Korth. Powers that have been contained only because they feared our combined strength. After Nexus, they will likely test our defenses more aggressively. And we have learned, Counselor Vex added, that traditional galactic warfare doctrines are insufficient against truly innovative opponents. Only human doctrine has proven capable of overcoming superior force through tactical superiority. Captain Morrison exchanged a look with Admiral Carter. The weight of what was being offered was staggering. Command of the galaxy's military forces would make humanity the effective dominant power in known space. Earth will need time to consider this proposal, Carter said finally. Of course, agreed Counselor Prime Zen. But while you consider, please, remember that the galaxy needs humanity's protection. The Nexus victory proved that human military doctrine is the key to survival in an increasingly dangerous universe. As the formal session concluded, Admiral Carter found herself surrounded by military leaders from across the Alliance. Each wanted to understand the tactical innovations that had made victory possible. Each hoped to learn from humanity's approach to warfare. But the most significant conversation came from an unexpected source. War Prime Skarath, now a prisoner of the Alliance, had requested to speak with the human commanders. Admiral Carter, the former Zephyrian leader, said through his cell's communication system, I have studied warfare for 3 centuries. I have conquered 50 star systems and defeated every military force I encountered. But I have never seen anything like what happened at Nexus. War Prime, Carter replied. You fought exactly as we expected you to fight. Your tactics were predictable, because they were based on the same doctrines used by every galactic military. But how could you coordinate such complex operations with such a small command structure? Skarath asked, genuine curiosity overriding his pride. Simple, Captain, Morrison answered. We trained for it. Every human officer learns to operate with minimal communication and maximum independence. When you cannot rely on superior numbers or technology, you have to rely on superior training and individual initiative. Initiative, Skarath repeated, the word as if tasting something foreign. In Zephyrian doctrine, initiative is discouraged. Commanders follow established protocols to ensure coordination. And that is why you lost, Carter said bluntly. When your protocols failed, your commanders had no idea how to adapt. 3 months later, the Galactic Council formally announced humanity's appointment as Supreme Military Command of the Alliance Defense Forces. The decision was unanimous, supported even by species that had initially opposed human membership. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, watched by trillions of beings who had never heard of humanity before the Nexus victory. The message was clear. The tiny fleet that had been mocked and dismissed now commanded the military forces of known space. Admiral Lisa Carter, now bearing the title of Supreme Alliance Commander, stood before the assembled delegates for her acceptance speech. "Representatives of the Galactic Alliance," she began, "humanity accepts this responsibility with full awareness of its magnitude. We pledge to defend Alliance worlds with the same determination we brought to Nexus. But we also pledge to share our military doctrine freely with all Alliance species. The strength of our defense lies not in any single species' capabilities, but in our collective ability to adapt and overcome any threat. Earth's 47 ships will remain 47 ships, but the Alliance fleet will learn to think like those 47 ships. We will prepare for defeat so that we can achieve victory." The applause that followed was genuine and sustained. The beings who had once laughed at humanity's tiny fleet now understood that size had never been the point. As the ceremony concluded and Admiral Carter began her new duties, Captain Jake Morrison remained aboard the UES Defiance, now flagship, of the Alliance fleet. His role had not changed significantly. He still commanded humanity's small but elite force. But everything else had changed. The galaxy that had dismissed humanity as irrelevant now looked to them for protection. The military doctrines that had seemed primitive now formed the foundation of galactic defense strategy. And somewhere beyond the rim, other threats watched and waited, unaware that the galaxy's defense was no longer based on overwhelming force, but on the tactical brilliance of a species that had learned to win by preparing to lose. The humans had been mocked for their tiny fleet. Now that fleet commanded the stars. In the end, they had proven what humanity had always known. It is not the size of the fleet that matters, it is how you use it. And humanity had spent centuries learning to use whatever they had to maximum effect. The galaxy was about to learn that lesson as well. The tiny fleet that everyone had laughed at was no longer tiny in its impact. It had become the greatest force in the galaxy, not through size, but through the power of human ingenuity and determination. The aliens had learned their lesson too late. Never underestimate humanity. The end.